button. All right. And so now I want to introduce you to Julia Kozlov. And Julia is a finance executive and went through the SoCal boot camp. She's based in the LA area. And but I'm telling you, between her and Sarah Stein, they are networking across the country with each other. It's so much fun to see people, the bi-coastal connections that we're getting over here. And so what Julia and I did one day is we talked about, wouldn't it be fun to have like a session where we shared best practices and even if somebody was really struggling with something, maybe as a group, we could support them and provide them with some ideas. And so we know our community is all about supporting each other and lifting each other up. And I love that Julia had that idea. And so now I'm going to let Julia do work her magic and introduce whatever, introduce yourself in whatever way you'd like. I know that you have landed, but I still think that, even though we landed, it's always good to make sure people know about you.
Thank you so much, Christy and Cindy. So my name is Julia Kozlov. I'm actually a finance professional. I know I'm not just a pencil pusher, but my whole thing was I needed a new job come April, May of this year. I did boot camp, which was incredible. And then I said, oh my God, looking for a job is a full-time job. How could this possibly be? I've never had to do anything other than go to a recruiter and say, I want a new job, or just see something somewhere, apply for it and get it. And then all of a sudden, as my skill set rose and as this new day and age came upon us, I had to go and get the premium LinkedIn. I had to join networking groups. I had to start talking to people, and I had to start connecting with people I hadn't connected with in years, because the only time I connected with them was when I was looking for a job. And so as I've now landed, I'm trying to make a really big concerted effort to continue doing what I've been doing. But I also started looking back and going, I wish there were things I knew. I wish there were certain networking groups I had tried earlier. And I wish there were some that there's only so much time in a day that I never even joined. And so when I was talking to Christi, all of these great speakers, and I think there was one a couple of weeks ago where there were a couple of tips. I don't remember which one it was. And so I was like, what if we did a whole session on networking groups, tips and tricks, even resumes? Like, I had no idea some of the things that I was told when I was redoing my resume that don't do anymore, or you really should do this. So that was kind of my idea. And Christi jumped on board and she added an extra level to it, because Christi's amazing and she does this for a living and I don't. So that was it. I put the questions in the chat, and Christi and I were just thinking that maybe we start with each one and then put your answers and tips and tricks and interact and put them in the chat. Because then at the end of the day, you can save the chat and go back through it if you want. And the session is being recorded. So I hope that sounds good to everyone. And let's start with the first one. Like, which groups have you found, which networking groups have you found most helpful and why? And there is a person that comes to boot camp, to these coffees, named Cindy Burns, who she emailed me a couple of them. So I'm going to put those in the chat to start off with, but I'd love to know your guys' thoughts on them. And if there's anything that maybe you agree with or don't agree with, or something that else, that another networking group that you would highly recommend. So
I think a few people have found the McDermott and Bull network good. And I think that, there's some good connections there, right? What is it that you like about it? For those of you who are not, for those people who are not familiar. Oh, Bulletproof Marketing. I think that's Pat Romboletti, right? Sarah.
Should I just say what I like about McDermott and Bull? Is that
Yeah.
helpful? So I'm actually going to one of their webinars later today. So, you know, I meet everyone there. It's a smallish group. And then if someone, I'm all about, do you have good energy? So if you have good energy, I'll do a one-on-one. That's how I met Chris Vaca. I'll do a one-on-one. And you never know, like, and my intention's always like, how can I help you? But then I always get an idea for myself, or maybe they have an idea for me. And really some amazing connections have come through that. There was someone who actually knows, oh, this is too wordy, but he knows my husband, and my husband's like, what are you doing on a meeting with him? And then it turned out I knew his wife, and it was like amazing. So I think it's just like, what are you going in? What's your intention going in? And then, you know, you don't, just keeping an open mind.
So is it less the topic that's on the docket for that McDermott and Bull session, and more
Exactly. It's not the topic that's on the docket at all. Like here, when I come to this group, I'm going to take notes and I'm going to be like, okay, I've just found another gear. There, I would not say I'm finding another gear. It's more like, oh, I'm meeting interesting people and expanding my network. And, you know, it's taken me some good places.
That's a really good tip. So maybe go to some of the ones, even if the topic isn't 100% what you're interested in, because the people could be really cool.
So Sarah, do they have breakout rooms? Is that how you get to meet people? Or
now I reach out to them on
Okay.
LinkedIn and say, you know, you seem to have good energy, and maybe I can help you.
But
So
this is Chris. They're smaller groups, so basically everyone's interacting at the same time. So, and I agree with Sarah, the topics are hit and miss, but you know, there's some good topics in there. But once again, because it's a smaller group, you get to interact with everybody generally. And there's different versions of it: LA version, Orange County version of it, San Diego. And I just started with LA, but I've moved into basically all the different meetings at different times.
Yeah.
my only watch out
COVID,
is
like you can actually go to all of these things all over the place.
totally. If you're late or leave early, they are unhappy. So I've actually gotten a demerit and I had a really good reason for being late, and I still got a demerit. So.
Well, and the good thing about it is they offer some things on Saturday as well. So I don't know whether you've ever taken advantage of that, but if you let's say you're working and you don't have time to take advantage of it, you can take advantage of the Saturday one. It's great on Saturday as well.
Bill, because that is one of the things, like once we land, we have less time potentially to do this stuff. But if there's a session on a Saturday, that's terrific.
I want to know what Sarah's demerit was.
They just sent me an email saying you have been late twice, and please be punctual. And I had a really good reason. I can't remember. I was leading a webinar. I was leading a mentoring group literally, and it went long. So I had a really good reason. And they were like, we still want you to be on time. We don't really care. So good to know.
After the third, this is Sergio, by the way. After the third time that you miss a session, they take you off the list for a month, just to make sure you know that you're respectful of their time. And I'm okay with it, you know, because when you have an interview or something, it's okay. But after 3 times, they put you on the background for a month.
I have a question. When you miss a session, meaning you signed up for one and can't go, or
Exactly.
and are you obligated to sign up for all of them?
No.
No, you're not.
Okay, so it's a decision that, okay. So
And
is
you
there a way
can
to
cancel in
cancel?
advance. Yeah, you
Oh,
can
that was-
cancel.
This is
No, but
something-
it is actually pretty good.
It is
But
good.
Sergio?
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Julia.
Oh, go ahead.
Basically, if you cancel within 24 hours of the event 3 times, that's when you know you get to put place on hold for a month. But if you give advance notice, because interviews and things like that, they're very good about it.
So what about the Pat Romboletti one, the bulletproofing your career? I mean, I hear so many people talking about it, and Julia, you mentioned that you liked it.
Do I haven't been in a couple months just because it's like on the West Coast, it's at 4:45 p.m. So I got out of the habit of going. But the really nice thing is her stuff is polished because she's written the book. She has a TED Talk. And so when you're really starting out, she gives you great tips on how to interact with people on LinkedIn, how to send those emails. You can save the chat, but really what it ended up being for me was the 500 people on there. I would read through the chat, see who I wanted to connect with based on whatever criteria I was using. And it was a great way of then going on LinkedIn and trying to connect with multiple people very quickly. So that was a nice thing, but really also it did give me a couple of hints and tricks on how to like increase my LinkedIn viewability, I guess. So what do you guys think? I mean, it's also a little frantic. So some people just save the chat and then do it later.
I like it. The time's hard on the East Coast too. I mean, I don't go all the time, but let's say it's a Thursday night and I have not had a great week. I'll definitely do it. And when I do go, I'm always glad I did. It's just kind of a hard time for me.
I think it's very worthwhile. It's, just like boot camp, alumni reunion, and Pat's group, I always, excuse me, make time for, just because it is energizing to me.
Yeah.
And she's very firm on, you don't solicit here, and that's important. And I've met great people. I mean, I think half the people on this call that I didn't know from McDermott and Ball, I met in Pat's group.
Same.
High
I've met good
energy.
people there.
Very high energy with Pat. I mean, she's got some
Oh boy, it's
very
like who wound
positive
her up?
energy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she says some really good things about like, even when you've landed, you have to keep networking. And Bill, you had a really good tip for that, because I would be networking and then I would kind of forget to go back to some of my old contacts, or every time I've ever landed, I stop networking. And that's the whole definition of bulletproof your career. Always continue networking. And Bill, you had a trick on how to continue doing that while you've landed. So can you share that?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to share that. As a coach, one of the things that we say is if it's important enough to do, then you need to schedule time in your calendar to do it. So you have to actually schedule time to connect with connections and say, I'm gonna take this 1 hour on a Friday and I'm going to do 25 connections, or I'm going to write 10 emails, or I'm going to write, and make it specific, not just a block of time, but a block of time with an action item in it. And you have to put it in your calendar, and you have to do it on a regular basis. And let's say you're going to go to so many networking events a month, you have to schedule time for them. You have to put that in as part of your monthly plan. Make it like any other calendar item. So it's important to schedule and use the discipline that you have in completing other work items. Make that a work item if you're working.
Great. What about Laguna Niguel connectors? Sarah, I think you went to that as well, didn't you?
I have done that and I enjoyed it. Again, I've been a couple times. That's definitely a tough time because I'm on the East Coast, but I enjoyed it. They promised you 3 coffees, and if you introduce first you go. I like things that start on time and end on time like this. And also Pat Romboletti's, that's my only thing, is it's the time isn't tight and it's long, but I do enjoy it. With Laguna Niguel connectors, first they put you in a networking group, which is great because networking is a muscle that I can always work. And then new members introduce themselves, and the first time they promise you 3 coffees. I got 9. And then at the second time I went, I offered to help other people. Your first connection, you'll be like, how can you possibly help me? Literally, how? But I said yes anyway. And then these people were amazing. Like, it's who they recommended I speak with were amazing. And they were very encouraging and very helpful. And they were great, but it was just kind of funny because I was like, literally, I don't know how you can help me. Like, I'm a beauty person and you're a man in automotive. How can you help me? And he knew someone who was a beauty person, but he wanted to talk to me first. So it was great. Like, highly recommend. Like, my birthday was Wednesday, so I didn't go this past week, but I highly recommend.
Happy birthday, by the way.
Thank you.
I had
So
the
what are
exact
some other
opposite
ones?
experience, Sarah, exact opposite.
Oh, what was yours, Cindy?
Excuse me. I had people reach out because they wanted introductions, but not introductions to my connections, but to second degree connections. And that doesn't work, especially when you really don't know somebody. And I also got a lot of sales calls after, or I shouldn't say calls, emails after it. And I stopped going. I just wasn't getting out of that organization what I was getting out of others. And there's only so many hours in the day that I really want to be spending on Zoom. And for a while there, I was on Zoom and one of these types of networking events every single day, sometimes 3 times a day. So I wish I had a nice experience like you, Sarah, or
But I've
Julia.
only been twice.
Oh,
But
you've
here's
only
my
been twice. Okay.
But here's my other thing. I make myself do 10 things a day, no matter what, for my search. So,
Oh,
and if I'm at 9 and there's someone I don't want to reach out to, I'm like, ooh, I could get that 10. So anyways, I'm a little competitive.
Oh,
If I
okay.
can chime in on Laguna Niguel connectors, the people that you might be thinking, okay, what does this person have to do with me? The thing is, you don't know who they know. And that's the biggest thing. So you reach out to people, you have communication. I've found it to be extremely fruitful. I haven't had the issue. There's been a few people that have been salesy and that sort of thing, but not a lot of it. But also you have to be proactive and don't wait for other people to connect with you. You go ahead and reach out and have virtual coffee meetings and learn about each other. And through that process, they're going to introduce you to other people, which again, whoever they recommend may then recommend someone else. And those recommendations to recommendations to recommendations lead to opportunities.
You know, John
absolutely
Bonte said
agree.
one time, when you're introduced to somebody or when you have an opportunity to connect with somebody, and you self-select out of that, you could be self-selecting out of a potentially really good connection. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and so that's something that I've always thought about when, people are connecting. It's like, it's always beneficial to give people 15 minutes of your time. So, and I don't know, just the humankind connection. It may not be, so if the expectation is the connection versus the expectation is an introduction, then I think you go into it with a different mindset. Okay, Julia, we've talked about Laguna Niguel connectors. We've talked about Bulletproof, your career with Pat Romboletti, McDurban and Bull. And what are some other groups that could be beneficial?
So I really like Shared Connections. It's on Tuesdays. It's small. It's kind of just starting out. It's on the East Coast. It's out of Chicago. And it's really the whole premise, the person who started it, kind of the way I got connected with them was we both commented on something from Bob Berg of The Go-Giver, which book you gave us, Christi, for our session. And it's just all about helping each other. And yeah, there are some people on there that have services, but everyone just wants to be helpful and kind of wants to do good and be a go-giver. Like that's the whole thing about it. So when I can, it's on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Pacific. So when I can, I try to go, and it's become a lot more kind of countrywide. And I think there's one or two people that are even not in the US. So I don't know if anyone else has, I believe a couple of you guys have attended. I've sent some invitations.
So now, Julia, you have the links to these that we can send out with the recording, correct? You don't have to put them in the chat right now, but
Yes.
yeah. And if you just send me the links, and we can get that out with the recording to everyone on the call. So, just know that the links will come. I like that, the shared connections. What about Lunch Club? We've had some positive feedback from Lunch Club.
I found everything for my new search, for this search, came from Lunch Club. And so it's been hit or miss, but if it's a miss, I get off the phone pretty fast. But all my new tools came from Lunch Club.
Yeah, I did 42 weeks in a row on Lunch Club, and then I just got too busy with certification for my new job. But I found it to be, again, the people that they knew, not necessarily the person that I was introduced to, but the people that they knew were helpful. So again, it goes back to John Labonte and not turning down a profitable second connection.
Right. And Julia, what do you think about Lunch Club?
Weeks, there were one or two good ones, and then there were some people that really, as someone said, there's only so many hours in the day. Do I think that potentially I'll give it another try? Yes, but I have to be very, I think, almost picky with who it is. And I don't know. Now hearing you, Christi, saying that potentially you don't know who they know, and it might be a really good connection, but I don't know. It was very hit or miss for me, so I didn't do that one. Chris?
I just want to make a general point about all of this, and just for a second, because there's so many groups, and the one thing I started late is really documenting who I talk to and who I meet. And I really, there's so many people that I didn't early on say, oh, and Sarah, I know people like Sarah, Cindy, I know, but there's so many people that I met in the past that have helped, that helped me one way or another, or that I wanted to remember something about them, or I wanted to, I see a job and I go, God, who was that person that wanted a marketing job? And so really, I've made a point over the last month to really just carefully document who I meet and what they do. And so I'm just giving that tip because it is real. It's not related, but it is very related to what we're talking about.
Amazing. And that was actually our second bullet, kind of new relationships and keeping old relationship, good tips and tricks. It was document who you meet and what you liked about them and what they do. I love that.
Cindy.
Just a quick question, going back to Lunch Club, if anybody has a template or some kind of guidance that you use when, you write your profile, because I did meet great people, but then I met a lot of younger people, excuse me, that were looking for work. So I just kind of let that slide, and I was pretty active for a while. So I'm just curious, some people have great success in meeting business connections, colleagues. If anybody has any kind of a boilerplate or suggestions for writing your profile.
I would just say, what do you like to talk about? Like, I love to talk about AI. I love to talk about beauty. And so I make it more about learning new things and meeting new people, but I literally love to talk about beauty and AI all day long.
So Sergio, you have your hand raised.
Hi, Cindy. I really feel that, I was going to so many different networking groups. I love the fact that your group really gets everybody involved. The Go Giver book is the perfect example that like right now I'm working, I have to be very selective because I cannot go to all the networking events. I try not to miss yours because I love it. And one thing that I notice when people ask me, why are you here? So my first answer is, I'm here to see how I can help other people that are in transition. And because I am not gonna make the same mistake as before, that I never networked. So you always meet people. Don't go with the mind of what I can get from the networking group, but what can I give to the networking group? I think that's the mindset that you have to have, because you should not expect to get something out of it. But at the end, whatever you give is going to come back to you. What you do, Cindy and everybody at the Platinum Group, whatever you do comes back to you in the same way and in a bigger manner. So
that's wonderful input, Sergio. And I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And, there's also something that, we have to balance our time and our efforts. And, being a go-giver, I do believe is the ultimate way to success, and as evidenced in our business model even. And one of the reasons that we give the Go-Giver book during our boot camps is because we do believe that, when job seekers realize or when they focus on helping other people, it does come back to them. And it does a couple of things. It takes your mind off of your problems, and it puts you in a different state of mind, which elevates your energy level and makes you a lot more attractive to interact with. And that's something that I believe. Carrie, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, so I completely agree with that conversation, and a fantastic thing. But to kind of go back to the lunch club conversation, because I've had very mixed results also. I had a conversation with someone that's been very successful. And basically what they said is they have the 10, 20 questions where you go through and say, do I like this person? Do I not like this person? Would I like to meet this person? Make sure you're doing those, and make sure you're saying no to some folks. So if you don't want to talk to a personal coach, or you don't want to talk to an entrepreneur that's looking for funding, make sure you're turning those down, and that you really refine that, which I have not done. But I am going to work on more directly to try to get a better audience, or a better, more specific target group.
Great suggestion.
That's a really, really good suggestion. Thank you. Do we want to move on? So I think we've talked a little bit about new relationships and keeping old relationships. I think what was said was take the alphabet and cycle through it and stay connected, document who you meet and what you like about them and what they do and how you can help them. And then just have that mindset of what can I give to others? Are there any other tips and tricks about, like, we all make all of these connections and then, oh my gosh, we need to go back to them, or, oh my gosh, we really want new ones. Does anybody want to talk about that for a couple minutes? Or have we beat it to death?
You can tie it to the next question about leveraging LinkedIn, because I think you can use LinkedIn as a tool to stay connected with a lot of your older relationships, and there are tools you can use with LinkedIn to do that. I won't go into that now, but I think it leads nicely into your next question, which is about leveraging LinkedIn and the benefits of the paid premium account. And I was very fortunate to be grandfathered into the $19.95 a month premium account. As long as I continue to pay that forever, I get all of the benefits, including Sales Navigator. So it's an absolutely amazing premium.
Wow.
I'm never going to stop paying my $19.95.
That's
Expensive now, although I do feel it's worth it, and I've kept it so far, even though I've landed.
It can definitely be worth it. I don't know that it's necessary. I'm lucky enough that I was grandfathered on the $9.95 price one. But I do teach LinkedIn on Thursday nights at Saddleback Church on Zoom. I also teach, that's a strategic LinkedIn. It's every Thursday night. If you have not been, I can't recommend it strongly enough. I guarantee you, even if you're using LinkedIn on a regular basis, you're going to learn things. I also have an advanced LinkedIn and a LinkedIn for targeting companies that is free on Monday. It alternates on Monday nights at through Saddleback Church. We do it on Zoom. But one of my philosophies on LinkedIn is stop thinking of it as a job search tool, but look at it as a career management tool. Because once you land, you need to keep using LinkedIn. You need to keep building the relationships with the people that you have connections with, because it's those relationships that are going to come back to you with opportunities. If you want to bulletproof your career, I mean, I have friends that have gone through the LinkedIn class and they haven't been unemployed in years, and they never apply to jobs because opportunities are constantly coming to them. It's not recruiters that are asking for their resume, but it's hiring managers that are saying, we want to interview you. And the power of LinkedIn is so strong, whether you're using the premium or not. And there are cases to use a premium and it can be very beneficial, but it's not absolutely necessary.
Greg, what did you
Greg.
think that stop looking at it as a job search tool, but as a
career management tool? It's a career security tool. It's a security net. Because to be honest, there is no job where there is job security, but you can manage your career security.
That's not, so
And
what
these
is
classes-
your
Go
number
ahead.
one tip? Like just that, oh my God, everyone should make sure they're doing this. Is it posting an article? What is it?
Posting articles is important, but probably the most important thing is reaching out with people in your network and just engaging. Be curious about who they are. Be curious about learning about them, because when you're curious, you're going to form deeper relationships. But when they see that you're curious, they're going to care about you, and then they're going to remember you. And that's where the opportunities come in. That's absolutely the most time-consuming part of LinkedIn, is being curious and learning about people in your network and having those conversations. But it comes back in gold.
Well, I completely agree with you, Greg. I think that, being curious allows you to get to know people in a very different way. And
it does. I run into so many people that say, you mean you want me to read the profile before I connect with them? I'm not even interested in these people. Why am I reading the profile? Well, if you're not interested, then why are you connecting? Well, you said I have to have over 500 connections. Well, the connections don't work until we're curious and learn about people. There is a very popular book. It's called Purpose Driven Life. And the book starts off with the sentence, it's not about you. Well, networking is not about you. It's about learning about other people and just being curious and having that purposeful, it may not be innate, but if you can develop a purposeful curiosity, it just comes back in gold.
so, Greg, will you put the LinkedIn class link in the chat?
Yes,
And,
I will.
And that way people have it.
So
I actually have it in my intro, and I'll go ahead and put my intro in there.
I have to say Greg's class is amazing. It's better than any of the paid classes that I have taken in the past.
Great.
So
Thank you.
I'd like to give him
It's
my
free.
recommendation. Yeah.
And use the LinkedIn Social Selling Index to see how you're doing in each of the 5 major areas as you
Absolutely.
are engaging with LinkedIn.
What?
But you can find out, it's the Social
Social
Selling
Index.
Index.
What is it?
It's a go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Greg. Go ahead.
It's a tool from Sales Navigator, although you don't have to be part of Sales Navigator. If you're logged into your LinkedIn account and you open up a new tab in Google, what is my LinkedIn social selling index? It's going to pull up a page. It's going to give you a graph on how well you're engaging with your network. And there, you'll have some areas that are strong, some areas that are weak, and those are things that you can improve on. And that just says, what is your LinkedIn activity? And again, for me, LinkedIn is so much more than a profile. It's not an online resume, but it's a presence. And how are you engaging with your network?
Yeah, and you want to target to get your score up to 70. 70 and above means you're using LinkedIn productively and you're hitting all the 5 areas well. And, and there are things you can do to improve, and you can track how you're doing on the various things. So, and it tells you how you're doing compared to other people in your industry. Like, for example, other people in my industry, their average social selling index was 26. And
how is that beneficial, Bill, for job seekers?
Well, it's beneficial because it tells you whether you're building engagement effectively, whether you're finding connections to the right people, whether your profile has the right elements in it that's going to attract the people to you, like hiring managers. So it looks at the 5 elements of how you and others are engaging with you on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. And, to further that, again, it's geared towards salespeople.
Right. Got it.
And salespeople will be successful when they're building relationships. Job seekers will be successful when they're building relationships. And so that kind of gives you a metric. This is what I'm doing on LinkedIn that is helping me. This is what I'm not doing on LinkedIn that I need to do to help myself. And Lee asked a great question. Do you mean to have the conversations on LinkedIn or through LinkedIn? Yes and no. The conversations through LinkedIn will be tracked and tagged on your social selling index. But if you have one of these devices, a smartphone, it has a app that works really well. Actually, it lets you call people. You can use Zoom, or you have email access to every person your first degree connection with.
A lot of people don't realize that. I want to keep moving. We have a lot of different topics.
Okay, great.
So, Greg,
Christi?
I think your class is really where we want to direct people.
Okay.
See, I wanted to add one more thing. So I had no idea how to post articles on LinkedIn, and someone mentioned Smart Brief. I'm adding the link into the chat. And literally you can choose, there's a million different industries on there, and it sends you emails once or twice a week on the different topics you want. And like I chose leadership and finance and a couple other ones. And so I skim through that, see if there's an article I want to read, and the articles are only a couple minutes long. And then I will, if I like the article, I will share that article on LinkedIn and literally add, you can even do something as simple as, I found this article interesting, what do you think? But I'll take one or two sentences from that article that really spoke to me as a way to get people to click. And not everyone comments, not everyone interacts, but it's a way of easily posting, because I had no idea. I'm like, what do you mean post on LinkedIn? I have to write articles? And you don't. So you can go, okay, so Carrie, you use Smart Brief daily and subscribe to several. It's a great way, and it's literally, when I actually do it, it takes 10 minutes to find an article, read it, and post on LinkedIn. It's not that hard to do.
That is really, really great advice.
Tracy has her hand raised.
I do. I just had a question about LinkedIn is how do you is there a way to make your feed more efficient? So I had a period of time where I was networking with high-end CMOs, and we were networking. So everything I was seeing was exactly what I wanted to read. Then there's a period of time where I went strong and connected with recruiters. So that gave me some good feed. Now my feed, I feel like, is polls, and it's always the same people. And is there something I can do to get the right things in my feed that does give me interest to connect and respond to.
If you see something that you like, respond to that. Otherwise, go to people's profiles that would be giving you information, see what they're posting, start responding to their posts, and then it will adjust.
There's an algorithm that just watches what I
Yes.
like and,
It watches
Okay.
your activity and then it adjusts according to that.
okay, thank you.
They're watching you.
Look at all
Yeah.
those, yeah. Do we want to go on to resumes? I think we have like 13 more minutes. Christy, do you want to go, do you think we should do that?
Yeah, I think resumes are always a great topic. And, you know, we all know that resumes, there's 40 gazillion ways to do a resume. So many different ways. And I'd love to hear some people and their best practice or best suggestion for the group on resumes.
One of mine is super easy, and I had multiple people tell me, and I poo-pooed the first 3 people, and then I was like, wait, so many people are telling me use a Gmail email. I don't know why, but people seem to think that if you use a Gmail email as opposed to like AOL or Yahoo or whatever else it is, it just makes you more with the times.
Absolutely, 100%. You never want to use Yahoo. If you're interviewing with a millennial and their parents are using Yahoo, that's killed the interview.
Or
I
AOL,
want
that's
to get
frightening.
a lot of different conversations going so that we can hear job seekers and what has worked for you.
Yeah.
Always have a clear summary section at the top, because the people are going to read the first top third of the first page first. So the most important things that you want to communicate have to be in the top 2 inches of your resume. And that's not it's not which email address you have that they're going to key on. They're going to key on what's in the next section below that.
Yeah, actually, I would even expand from
Top
that.
third.
Go ahead, Anne Marie.
Yeah, I learned this actually at boot camp, and it took me a while to rev my resume to get there, but it's not even the first 2 inches. I think the first half of a page, it needs to be your brand. And so it's not just a summary. So summary is part of that, but it has to be like they need to be able to get you. And I know for me that I've worked in many different areas, I have to actually do the math for the person who's reading it and basically summarize who I am, which isn't necessarily, and so I don't go and change loads of things in my resume, because the problem is so for people, you're targeting a job, if you've got that depth, you can do that. But if you don't have the depth, if you have the breadth, then you have to really show your breadth in that upper part. So
Clara, I like what you had said. You had mentioned headlines with keywords are important.
Yes. So much like you use headlines and keywords in your LinkedIn profile, more and more, I'm seeing this and advising on this, because I do this for UCI, to put the job, not your current job title, but really the form or title or role that you're going for in the future. So if you want to present yourself as director of operations, put director of operations up there. So you're giving people just shortcuts to understand what your brand is, who it is that you are. So I love the comments so far, and just wanted to build on it.
You know, Clara, and that's a really good point. There was a finance executive who came through boot camp, but she always had recruiters calling her, and somebody asked her, well, what's your secret? And she said, headlines on LinkedIn, headlines on your resume. And that's what she said was the best thing that she could advise people on. Anybody else have thoughts and ideas on resumes?
The last 10, they say to put the last 10 years as your bulleted items. And then after that, just put what the companies were, because you're not that person. And for me, I balked. I was like, I had Deloitte and Touche, I had Disney, that was more than 10 years ago, I don't get it. And they're like, yeah, but the things that you did there, you're far, you know, you do so much more now. So that's not what you want people to remember. You don't need them to, because my resume was getting to be 4 pages. And so now it's just the last 10 years of what I've done, my accomplishments, but then the facts in an interview, I can discuss what I did at Disney or Deloitte or whatever.
Right. And I completely agree with that. I like the whole idea of putting previous experience, and you don't have to put the years on that, but you can just put the company names, because if you're with a Fortune, 100 company, it's impressive. Or if you were with Big 4 or Big 8, and you do want that because you want to know what your foundation is. What someone told me one time when I first got into this industry was that you want people want to know what your story is. And so the psychology of resumes, first 4 inches is the most valuable real estate. And then you want, the companies and your accomplishments listed underneath those companies. So they look at the first 4 inches, then they go to the back page and look at your education, and they start building the story, and then they come back to the first page. So, and again, they do this all in 6 seconds. So everything has to really pop. And it is true, people have a very short attention span. So, keeping it to 2 pages is important. Who else from a job seeker perspective has, something that they can share as far as a tip that's worked for them?
One of the other things I'll say is it's okay to have your own private 10-page resume, because you can keep your power story bullets on that resume. I have a very, very long resume that goes all the way back, and I can use any of those bullets from the previous 35 years to create a power story, one of my 50 power stories that I can share in an interview. They don't have to know that it was 10 years ago or 15 years ago, because it's not on your resume, but it's something that you can use to share when you're in an interview. So keep a longer resume. When people are interested in you, they're interested in more information rather than less. So you want to have some way to get to that more information.
Thank you, Bill. Remy.
It is regarding resume, it is worth paying someone, a professional resume writer, if you can afford that. But it's not, you can find various pricing. It's just finding the right certified professional resume writer. And they can really upgrade your presentation on what you put on the paper. That will increase your potential and your value, even though you're still the same person. I've done that in the past. I'm redoing it right now. It's an investment, but it's really put you in a different light. You would never, ever have thought about that. It's worth going to various networking group where they talk about that, where Greg, at the church where Greg Johnson talked about, I don't remember the name, I've been there, but it was great too. It's not only maybe paying someone, once you've done that, go and meet other people and show it to them, because one person is not the opinion of the recruiter. But at the same time, I've done that and say, okay, maybe you say Remy has a French accent. It's not that. I correct a lot of English people here. No, just to put this in perspective, it's really, you may be the greatest guy or lady in communication, in English major, but still, it's a craft.
Yes, I agree. So Julia, what else? What other topics should we bring up? We have a few minutes left.
So the one other one that wasn't put on there, but to me, so you have a consulting job or a temp position or a contract engagement, yet you're still looking to, it's not really the job for you. How do you find time to continue the networking while at the same time actually, we're all kind of A-type personalities, I think, doing really well in your job. And I kind of like what I was talking to Bill earlier, and I think you mentioned in over this past like 55 minutes was, hey, block your time out, make it a meeting and really continue to do it. So I think that that was a good tip, but what do you guys think? Like, I'm sure a lot of you guys have consulting or contractor or temp positions.
Laura has her hand raised. Laura.
Sorry about that. I had to unmute. So I actually just wanted to go back to the resume conversation really quick, if you don't mind. I always, even though on most applications that you're submitting online and stuff, it says cover letter optional, I always do a cover letter. And a personalized cover letter, I think, has gotten me interviews in places that I never thought I would get, because I can talk in the first couple paragraphs about, you know, who I am and why I'm passionate about the work that the company does and things like that. And all of my cover letters are quite personalized to the position that I'm applying for. Granted, it takes a little bit more time to do that, but I've had some success. Some successes doing that I just wanted to make sure that when it says it's optional, at least from my perspective, it really isn't.
So Laura, and that's a good point. When you do a cover letter, do you attach it to the document so it's incorporated into your document?
So it depends on the software that I'm uploading to. Some of the softwares have it where it's a separate upload, and then others have it where you're supposed to kind of do it all at once. So I do it in different ways depending on the company, the software that the company's using.
I will say that I've taken that, and I don't do cover letters, but I really love my about section in LinkedIn. And I kind of talked about my hiking experience in my about section and juxtapose that with my financial experience. And so I thought that there's a great article, which I'll also send out a link for, where it talks about ways to do your about section, which really tells your story, which has been a theme here.
Yeah, most hiring managers, when they're looking at the system, will only pull up the resumes. They won't even read the cover letters. So the only way to get a cover letter read sometimes is to send it directly to the hiring manager, and not as an attachment, but as an email or as a snail mail. Because if they get it on their desk now, during the pandemic, that was harder. Now that people are coming back to the office, it's easier, but you can write a beautiful cover letter that no one reads. So I'm just caution against always uploading a cover letter, because as a hiring manager, when I go into the system and I pull down your resume, unless there's two people that are really close, I'm not going to read their cover letter.
Hey, Lee Merkel has a question. When you want to transition your role, what's the most effective way to use LinkedIn to post articles and topics that are not in line with your current role, but more in line with the target role? I don't want to create a disconnect between my posts and my current role. Who in the audience has done that? There's got to be somebody.
Well, I'm in the process of doing that. I would like to transition from the nonprofit sector into the corporate social responsibility sector. And all of my posts as of late have been about corporate social responsibility.
Oh, so your posts on LinkedIn.
I think putting your interest first and moving in the direction of where you want to go is the best thing you can do, because you're trying to rebrand yourself. So the last thing you want to do is keep reinforcing what you've done in the past. What you want to do is reinforce and become a subject matter expert on the direction that you want to go.
Great suggestion. Okay, everyone, we are out of time. Julia, thank you for bringing this up. And everyone, this is wonderful. What we're going to be doing is sending out surveys on what you want to hear about in the future. And also, timing of, should we continue these meetings on Friday morning, et cetera. So we want to, make sure, oh, Bill's saying yes. We want to make sure that we're keeping up with things. And thank you everyone for joining. And Julia, you are just a gem. And just a huge shout out to Sarah Stein. My gosh, you have introduced so many new people to boot camp. And I'm telling you, I think we're going to have a huge group in New York or East Coast by the end of 2022, that's for sure. So thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week when we have Mark James. And then the following week, the last one of the year is Bill Laser. Woo, woo, woo. Can't wait for that one. And so thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend. Get started on your December in the best way possible. Stay safe. And thank you for being in community with us. Bye, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
Christy.
you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.